the magical record button and give myself a semi-professional countdown of 3, 2, 1. Hello, the internet. Matthew here for another amazing episode of Something Creative. I have for you all tonight an incredibly creative and funny individual. I swear he's hilarious. His work's hilarious. I've been following him for a little bit. Is an incredible cartoonist and an all-around just damn good guy. Tim Spike Davis, thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate it.
Man, I appreciate you having me on, Matthew. I've been blessed. You've been following me for a long time. Somebody was asking me tonight, well, how does this guy know you? I was like, he's been following me on Facebook and I'm horrible with timelines, so it seems like a long time. But I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on. It's been real exciting. Thank you.
Oh, you're very, very welcome, Tim. So, right off the bat, I want to start with the meat of it all. You have an art book out now, right? A comic book.
Yeah. With the lockdown, my wife and I decided that it was time to go through my collection of cartoons, specifically hunting cartoons, because I have cartoons on every subject you can imagine. But we decided to specifically focus on hunting cartoons and use that time to go through and, I've been submitting hunting cartoons for almost 10 years now to print publications. And a friend of mine had said to me a year ago, like, how many cartoons do you think you have like in your stockpile? And I was like, maybe 300. I was just guessing.
Right.
And my wife and I got up my boxes and we counted over 900 cartoons. Damn. And yeah. Now there was my wife is a high school English teacher, and so she's wired very differently than me. She's great to have as an editor because everything is spelled correctly, correct punctuation, no cartoon gets by her with poor punctuation.
Can't have that.
And so we sat down and we did an A pile and a C pile, and we did, A pile was this was a cartoon that made her laugh and me laugh. B pile, C pile was what were you thinking when you drew this? And so and then we whittled that down, and we ended up with about 380 cartoons.
Okay, and so you put them all in this book. What's the name of the book?
So it's just titled Scattered Thoughts. Okay. And that's been my slogan of my cartoons for hunting cartoons. And actually comes from Predator, the magazine Predator Xtreme magazine. The editor wanted to give it a heading, like how Gary Larson had The Far Side. Right. He wanted something like that, so we came up with Scattered Thoughts cartoons. And so it says Scattered Thoughts, and then it just has a deer on the front with an arrow in its butt, and the arrow and the deer is saying, "Does this arrow make my butt look big?" He's asking another deer that. And so one of the things that when I first came out, one of the reasons why I chose that to be like the top cartoon was that I wanted people to kind of get the idea of my humor. It's not specifically Peanuts or something you'd see in the Sunday afternoon newspaper. It's a little bit, it can be dark humor as far as hunting's concerned.
Right.
And so I even put a warning label on there that just said, graphic images of violence and some adult language. Right. Still warn people, but it's been well received. I've been very blessed. We printed it off. I went and self-published it, so I sent it off to a company that basically I paid for the first run, and then and I was terrified to do it because I screw up Amazon orders. Like I can't even order the right thing on Amazon, and so I had my friend help me out with all the files and the cover and stuff. But I was the one who had to set up the account, and I was the one who had to send it to this company. And I thought they're going to print what I send them. What if I send them the wrong thing? And so I was almost sick to my stomach when I pushed send. Yeah. And I didn't know how long it would take them to publish it or to print it. I'm thinking especially with COVID, I'm thinking 2 to 3 months. Right. 4 days later get an email back saying your book is being shipped to you. And I was like, Oh God, yep, they screwed it up. They screwed it up because there's no way they printed 100 of my book in less than 4 days. And
Right.
so when it showed up, we opened it up with much trepidation, like, oh, and we were shocked. It was like, oh, this is great. You know, we were pleasantly surprised. And I put it up for sale on Facebook that night. And within 8 hours, it sold out the first batch.
Yeah.
So, which is a good thing in one sense, but my stress level was through the roof because, of course, I had to put all these in envelopes and ship them out and go to the post office. And in Chicago, the post office is a nightmare. And then I also had to deal with the fact that the postal system was going through a crisis itself.
Right.
So I was having people patiently, but people writing me saying, hey, where's my book? And, you know, I was like, oh, Lord have mercy. But, you know, everyone ended up getting their books. I actually had to go, I didn't have to, but I chose to go hand deliver some to people within a 2-hour radius of Chicago.
Oh.
If you'd ordered a book and hadn't received it by a certain time period, I would drive you out a second book. And it was kind of fun. You know, we had a guy who's a farmer who was out harvesting his crops, and we literally drove up, and he drove up in his tractor, and I jumped out of my car and ran up and handed him his book, and he was pretty blown away, you know, but it was just a fun experience for us. And so we've been pleasantly surprised and just blessed at the response. And you know, as a person who's an artist, you are always looking at that kind of stuff through a critical lens.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, for me, it's difficult. I've looked at this book 1,000 times.
Right.
So when I pick it up right now, it's just like, oh, this is just, what was I thinking, you know, and you know,
Yeah.
Or I should have redrawn that one, or I should have done this. And
You're your own worst enemy.
Yeah. So I've just had to let it go and just let people, and like I said, I've been very pleasantly surprised and blessed at how the response by people writing me back, sending me pictures of their kids reading it, and so
yeah, I've seen that, some of that on your Instagram and your Facebook, which of course I'll be leaving here, of you know, people's just joyous reaction to it. And like I said, I've followed you for a while. I've seen your humor, and I love me. I've got a very, very messed up sense of humor anyway. So I've always appreciated it. One of my favorites actually is the deer goes into, I think it was like an emergency care, and he's got an arrow in him, and he's like, "Can you please hurry up? The guy who's blood trailing me is actually really good."
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, and that's another thing too. I'm always surprised about when I draw cartoons, is that there are cartoons that I'll draw that and one of the things I've had to learn through the years is that just draw it. Just draw. I've talked to professional cartoonists, and they're just like, don't overthink it. Just draw them out, and it becomes almost like a way of journaling and a way of dealing with what you're thinking every day. And there's times I draw stuff that sticks, and there's other times it's like, but there are some ones that I honestly thought would think no one's going to get this or no one's going to like this. And I'll have people writing me just like, oh my gosh, that's the funniest thing in the world. Like, okay, well, and it just shows you that people are wired differently. Yeah. And that people their humor trigger is different things. There's ones that I will draw that I think are the funniest things in the world that people be like, what?
Yeah, it doesn't land.
Yeah. And so for me, I've talked to several guys. One of my favorite cartoonists with the New Yorker is a guy named Matthew Diffie, and he does a lot of work with the New Yorker. And I've actually met him in person. We've talked, and he's gone through my work, and you know, he just is a big proponent of quantity. He draws like 10 cartoons a day, and I have a full-time job. I have responsibilities, so as much as I'd like to do that, I'm happy if I get 2 cartoons a day. Right.
But you're in the habit, basically. So you're constantly getting out there. You're constantly just drawing things. And I know you draw other than, you know, hunting, you know, on the subject of hunting. And one of the things I always found interesting are a lot of the Christian-focused cartoons that you draw. They always make me laugh. I was raised Christian. I'm pagan now, but I love what you put out, and I love seeing that. And it's always got a very, I mean, obviously it's got broad appeal. You know, because I've shown your cartoons to other people of various, like, you know, faiths and perspectives, and it always comes back with a smile, as far as I can tell. And I really like those cartoons as well.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that's been interesting is people ask me, like, how long have I been drawing cartoons? I've been drawing cartoons since I was a kid, like doodling, but drawing what they actually technically call a gag cartoon, which is to actually make somebody, so you're telling a joke visually,
right?
Is something I've only been doing in about 9 or 10 years, and like focused on it. And one of the things is at a transformational time in my life where I was having some fallout with people in my church, and having to be at a part of my life where I was having to question a lot of things that I had never questioned before. And really this transformational time in my life. And so a lot of my faith-based cartoons are questioning things that I just took as a given. And I think that appeals to a lot of people, even who aren't in the faith, because it's like you're actually questioning things that you were raised to not ask questions about, and or even challenge certain ideas. And generally most of the things I'd like to probably convey also in the I have a very self-deprecating form of humor. So I'm usually the butt end of most of my jokes, or I'm the guy who doesn't get it. I'm trying to conveying the thing with that is that just because I'm challenging you doesn't mean I think that I have it all figured out either. I'm just asking a question, you know. And so I think I've had a lot of atheists. I've had a lot of people from other faith backgrounds come to me and just go, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much." That really blessed me, because it's been interesting because I've had Christians on the same side either get really offended, or they'll be like, "Oh, you know, you need to draw a cartoon about like making fun of atheists." And I'm like, "Well, first of all,
that's not what it's about.
I'm not an atheist, so for me to make fun of something I'm not familiar with would be dumb." It's not about lobbing bombs at people. It's about us being able to joke with each other. And so, and I've had people, one of my more controversial faith-based cartoons is it's the scene in the Bible where Jesus is with the woman who's been caught in adultery. And the Pharisees are pointing down at her. And he says, as in the scriptures, he was without sin can cast the first stone. And the woman caught in adultery is thinking, I sure hope there's no Baptists in this crowd. You know, traditionally Baptists seem to be ones that think they are without sin.
Yes, I get it right away.
And I've had Baptists reach out to me very offended, upset, and I generally react to them in a very, very humble spirit, going, it's supposed to be a joke. And by the end, they actually brutality. And but I also want, what I generally like to do with cartoons is challenge people to laugh about something that humor is a way of bridging people you wouldn't normally connect with. So, like, I have a cartoon that it's 2 Native Americans in the foreground, 2 Indian braves. Look at this onslaught of Europeans coming in covered wagons, and the one steal our.
Oh, hold on. Your signal is coming through. Bad. Okay, you're back.
Yeah. So, yeah, and so let me double check my signal here where I've got going on.
You should be okay.
Yeah. So basically,
So basically,
Uh,
you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me a lot of Mel Brooks. You know, a lot
okay.
of the way Mel Brooks. One of my favorite ways that Mel Brooks kind of express what you are talking about in your work is in the Frisco Kid, where this
Yeah.
this Jewish guy, this rabbi, goes to the Old West and he finds commonality with different, with the monks, with the Indians, with everyone, and it kind of draws together through humor. Now we all kind of sigh and bemoan the fact that Mel Brooks would not get away with making a movie nowadays,
Yeah.
but it I like your sentiment. I like what you're saying a lot, because I think a lot more people understand that.
Hmm.
We're in a culture right now that's very, as you said, easily highly offended, and people always are on this little bit of a high horse, and they're very easily triggered. And I like the fact that you're exposing that in a non-aggressive way. So for everyone who doesn't know, first of all, you have to make sure you're following him, and you'll see exactly what he's talking about, what I'm talking about, when you understand that it will kind of, if you're sensitive to it, it'll definitely hit that nerve, but it's not overt. It's not offensive, overtly. It's like, if he hits you, he didn't mean to miss you.
Yeah.
But it has that, and it's not over the top. And I love that. And I think that's great the way you do that.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that I've seen through humor is that I have seen people who've taken in a specific genre like political cartoons where they'll definitely take one side.
Yeah.
And the problem is it becomes so predictable and so hackney
Yeah.
that it's not challenging. It just becomes childish. Anyone, in my opinion, I read that stuff. I'm like, anyone can draw this or anyone can write this
Yeah.
because it's so predictable. All
Right.
you got to do is change the different platforms, and it's the same bomb being lobbed back and forth.
Right.
Whereas if you can stop and get somebody to kind of laugh, one of the funny things that I had, and humor has been one of those things that I have really been blessed to see the doors it's opened. There's a group of guys that I'm friends with deep in the South in a town that the nearest town I think is like 30 people, and it's a group of guys who they'll even admit themselves. If you'd have told us 6 years ago we'd be friends with somebody from Chicago, we'd have been like, hell no. And I started sending them some of my cartoons, and some of my cartoons were actually lampooning them, making fun of them in a respectful way.
Yeah. I get you.
In a way that was thought provoking.
Yeah.
They went crazy over it. I thought they'll either get the joke
Right.
or they'll want to kill me. And they go crazy over it. I mean, I've gone hunting with them, and we've become really good friends.
Mm-hmm.
And we live in totally two different worlds. We have totally two different world views, but yet we're able to have this commonality through humor. And I think that if people are, there's a saying by Oscar Wilde, if you're going to tell somebody the truth, make them laugh or they'll kill you. And so I've used that as a kind of a mantra with my cartoons, is that, telling somebody, hey, you're wrong. Well, that's just whatever.
Yeah, it's not going to help.
You kind of make a little bit of a joke about it. And most of the time, it's very disarming, and people get a good chuckle out of it. One of the biggest compliments I ever had was I had a lady write me one time and tell me that I needed to stop drawing cartoons because I had an unfair advantage in any argument, because no one argues with a cartoon. And she's saying this to me, and I'm thinking this is actually a huge compliment.
Yeah.
Because she's like, when I see a thread on Facebook or something, and somebody's really upset or says something that provokes an emotion in me, I rarely write them. Yeah, I'll draw a cartoon about it, and I'll post it. Rarely ever is there any comments after that cartoon, because no one knows what to do with that. They're just like, and I've told people, get a pad of paper and pen, and draw a cartoon. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't have to be. Some of the, if you follow the New Yorker,
Mm-hmm.
some of the funniest cartoons are actually not that well drawn.
Right.
You don't have a phenomenal cartoonist or artist to make funny gag cartoons.
Right.
And so I always encourage people, like, get a pad of paper and pen out, and you might be bad at it first, but you'll find your voice eventually through it. And,
See, now you just see. I always ask this question of every creative that I get to interview: is what would you tell someone who has yet to do, who wants to do what you're doing, and has yet to actually do it? And you just answered it. It's just get the pad and get going, huh?
Yeah. And I've taught a couple. My wife has invited me to do some classes at her high school,
Mm-hmm.
and I tell students, you're allowing yourself to get hung up on the fact that you can't draw a hand correctly,
Mm-hmm.
or you can't just keep drawing,
Mm-hmm.
and just it's like, if I look at what I did a year ago, I'm like, oh. If I looked at what I did 5 years ago, I'm like, oh. If I looked at when I very first started it, it's just like.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful I didn't give up. I just kept on. And like I said, I have more cartoons that made it in the reject pile than made it in the to-go pile. And so I think a lot of times people think, I want to do what you're doing, and I want to do it right now. It doesn't happen that way. You got to just keep, every great artist, whether it's a guitar player, a musician or whatever they're doing, a painter, they have to. There are a rare few people who are just good at it right out of the box.
Yeah.
There are usually annoying people. But most of the people I know are people who've just had to hammer it out. And anytime I even venture into a new art form, recently I got into doing linoleum cuts, block cuts.
Okay.
And just mess around with it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was horrible. It was just like, but I'm out of my comfort zone. I'm out of and I know that for me to be good, there's a certain level amount of time I'm going to have to really invest in this.
Right.
And so I encourage anyone, is just like, what I would encourage anyone if they really want to get into cartooning is like decide, because even in cartooning, it's almost like a genre within a genre. There's punk music. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of versions of punk rock.
Right.
So what I would say with cartooning is, there's like, you go to start looking up cartoonists, and there's everything from Calvin and Hobbes and Peanuts to the political cartoons to the New York. I decided to go more with the New Yorker style,
Mm-hmm.
single panel, generally more macabre, more darker, cynical kind of humor.
Yeah.
And I studied that stuff. I would literally go to the used bookstore and just buy up New Yorker collection books all the time, and just go through that stuff and just try to analyze, like, what's funny about this, what's not funny.
Right.
Some of them were so bad, I was like, if this made it, I can do, you know what I mean? Like, it was encouraging too. Like, if this got published, I bet you I could do this too, So I just humor is one of those things that's such a it's almost like a butterfly floating around. It's so hard. It's there. Everyone can see it. Everyone enjoys it. But trying to get it and capture it and bottle it is very difficult. And it's almost like once you do that, it dies and it doesn't work. You know what I mean? It's like, anytime somebody tries to find a formula.
Yeah.
See this with shows a lot of times where
Mm-hmm.
they look, it's like the first few seasons were just, oh, this was so awesome. Well, the writers are trying to figure out how to keep that humor ball rolling. And it generally just becomes stale.
Right.
It becomes canned, predictable.
Right.
And so for me, those things like humor is just one of those things that, and again, it's just if I show somebody, like I draw a cartoon, and I'll show 10 different people that cartoon. There's never going to be 100%. Everyone's going to like it.
Right.
Of that 10 people, I could even get 6 people to like it. I'm like, woohoo! But some people aren't going to get it. They're like, what's up with that deer? And what? I've had people ask me, look at and of course I am in the inner city of Chicago, but they're like, what animal is that? have you never seen a deer? Like, what? I had a guy last week ask me what animal that was. I was like, and so, of course, obviously the cartoon went way over his head because he didn't get, oh, this is a deer being hunted by, whatever. So,
Right.
if you Matthew Diffie said, if you got to explain a cartoon out, it ain't going to be funny,
Right.
So,
Dude, you know what? This was one of the easiest interviews I've had the privilege of conducting. I mean, I've hardly had to ask anything. You are just such an open book, and I really appreciate your openness and your honesty. Speaking of books, I really highly recommend everybody go get Scattered Thoughts. I really hope you can keep up with demand, because I think it's something that should be read. And I want to make sure everybody gets the opportunity to follow you on Instagram, on Facebook, check out your work, and try to find that commonality and to see everything that you are putting out. I really highly recommend it. Tim, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it. Everybody, go follow Tim Spike Davis. And from Tim and Matt, this has been another amazing episode of Something Creative. Take care, everybody. Catch you on the next one.